probe on fuel subsidy management. And joining me now is Wale Oluwo. He's CEO of Investment Bank at BGL, and we'll be looking at this together. Good morning, Wale.
Good morning.
Thank you for making it here just in time. Now, I know that you have been following this probe. We did see some quite interesting revelations yesterday. Now, of course, there had been rumors that, or allegations over the last couple of months, and most especially recently, that some amount of fuel, millions of liters, was being diverted. We couldn't put figures to that or numbers to that allegation, but it seemed like yesterday more of that came out, and we were able to actually put a figure to how much was actually being diverted. 24 million liters per day is what we heard yesterday that may have been diverted, coming to about 8.8 billion liters annually, and the federal government actually paid subsidy on that amount. What are your thoughts? Give us your thoughts on that.
Let me start by saying it's part of the entire structural problem that we've always had in the downstream sector. Conceptually, there is nothing wrong in when importers have been allowed to collect subsidy and they actually imported and collected subsidy. That is quite legitimate. It is when you do all these sharp practices that it becomes illegal and you can be prosecuted. In the same way, for the Nigerian economy, the direction or the expectation has always been that we will be export-oriented. That is what all of us desire, economists, financial people, everybody. But when you say you'll be export-oriented, charity should begin from home. And it is when you have dominated your West African neighborhood by exporting things to them and collecting the little foreign exchange they have, that is when you are moving towards that export-oriented economy. So the truth of the matter is, if you are exporting petroleum products, clearly you are exporting. What makes it unusual now is because government has subsidized it because of the structural, market model, weak market model that we are using, which is based on government doing everything. And that is why we are now seeing exportation of products, which is consistent with our aspiration. And we are saying it is completely illegal. We don't want it. But these are signs of structural problems that we are running the downstream sector the way we should not run it.
Now, when you're talking about exporting products, we're talking about this 24 million liters that we're talking about was not export. Well, if it was exported, it wasn't exported legally, as it was.
That is the issue. There is nothing about legal exportation or illegal exportation. What is important is that we are just quarreling with them because they are collected subsidy from the government of Nigeria and they are now moving the products outside. Normally, if they have used their money to go and import fuel, you can sell your fuel anywhere. It's your money. Nobody dashed you money. But what is now looking criminal in it is the fact that government subsidized those products. And ordinarily, that subsidy is supposed to benefit Nigerians. And these guys are taking it outside.
Yeah, well, the government didn't know that. I mean, I would imagine that if any government knew that, of course, it would step in and, of course, do something about it. Now, also bring up this point and let me also mention here about last week when we had that industrial action, the central bank governor, in one of his interviews, did say that he had proof, documents showing that NIMASA saying that they actually did see some of these tanks or ships offloading before they came to the port.
There's no doubt about that people are, taking these products outside the Nigerian border. There's no doubt about that. Every evidence points to that. What we didn't know before was the magnitude and the amount of money that was involved. But now that we know, we must now make a determination. How do we address it? Do you want to send your security people to be policing the borders? Which to me is going to be very difficult. You know why? America is the most efficient country in terms of security and policing borders. But they've not been able to police their borders. That's the truth. Their border with Mexico is still as porous, and there's nothing they have not done. To police borders is going to be very difficult. You know why? Because those borders are not, divided by water. It's just the same stretch of land. And if you are somewhere in Maiduguri and you are standing on the road, somebody will just say, if you move one step forward, you're already in Niger. If you move one step to this side, you're in Nigeria.
Well, I would imagine
but
that,
of course, the road
should even be easier if it's not water, because if it's land, it means you can actually physically put somebody there.
You can put physically somebody there if these guys are, plying the main roads, in which case you can block it. Okay. But if they are going through other bush paths, it's going to be extremely difficult. I'm not saying that is an excuse for government not to do it, but I'm saying it is also going to be extremely difficult to do it efficiently, and a lot of money you are going to spend doing it. You begin to ask yourself, is that the best way to apply your resources? What is motivating this activity? And if you don't deal with the cause of a problem and you are dealing with the symptoms, it's not going to stop. Something must be motivating them to move products from Nigeria outside Nigeria, because they are economic agents. They are being rational.
Greed, corruption, the reason it's not far-fetched.
No, they're economic agents. They are being rational. If I can sell 65 naira in Nigeria and I can sell 120 in Republic of Benin, as a businessman, the first thing I want to do is to go to Republic of Benin. But in that case, I should not have collected federal government subsidized product. That is the clarity I wanted to put into this discussion. Okay,
now, according to what we heard, revelations yesterday about the federal government would have saved 672.1 billion naira. That was the amount of fuel not consumed. That's the total number of amount of fuel that didn't get to our borders, 8.8 billion liters. Now, at this time when we're talking about bringing down the cost of running government, saving more money for capital project or capital expenditure. Now, if we have 672.1 billion naira, and that against the fact that the federal government says it will save about 1.2 trillion naira from subsidies, if we had this amount, or if we can fix whatever the problem is right now, get it right at the end of this probe, it means that we have 672.1, I don't know, that's my calculation, 672 around that billion naira extra, or as it were.
No, there's nothing wrong in government having more revenues. We've always talked about that. What we don't want is a situation where those revenues are saved and they go into the same bureaucracy and we cannot see them. We cannot see the projects that are being done with them and every other expectation that can meet the needs of Nigerians. Now, there are two issues here. The first issue is that democratization of the subsidy regime. That's the first issue. In which case, you are saying, why must subsidy removal be a first-line charge on the federation account before you are distributing it to the states? And I think Atedo Peters made these points, in a very consistent manner to say, look, people are consuming this thing somewhere, other people are not consuming as much, but you're taking the money before you distribute to the states. That is on one hand. On the other hand is the issue of concentration of financial resources, that is our revenue, in the hands of the federal government. And I heard the Action Congress of Nigeria yesterday saying, federal government must, cut its expenditure,
which its cost
of running government by 50%. That is a brilliant proposition. But you know the truth of the matter? I have checked all the budgets of all the states that have been presented to their houses of assembly, and I've been monitoring it. There is no state that budgeted more than 50% for recurrent expenditure. There is none so far, and I think I have a record of about 16 states already that have presented their budget. It is only the federal government that has over 70% as recurrent expenditure.
But you know the truth of the matter? It has more bills to pay.
No, that's not the issue. It's not bills to pay. Just imagine the federal government as an individual. Imagine that I have children in Canada, for instance, and I send $10,000 to them every month for upkeep. Look, the truth of the matter is they can afford to be partying every 2 days and enjoying themselves and spending the money anyhow. But the day I want to cut that profligacy, I'm not going to phone them and say, you know what, I want you to cut this your expenditure. That's a waste of time. What I will do is, instead of sending them that $10,000, I will reduce it to $2,000. That will barely pay their bills legitimately. And if they can now go and borrow money and do everything, then that will not be an issue that we'll talk about. So for me, encouraging the federal government or telling the federal government to reduce their expenditure to 50% is not a smart thing to do. What you should do is to go to the root cause of that problem, which is the revenue allocation. That gives the federal government about 53 or 54%, plus another 3% ecological fund. So it's getting 57%. Let's not bother about telling them to cut their expenditure. No problem. Let's just say, look, you reduce your revenue that you are collecting to probably 40%. And then they will have to go and sort themselves out. If you don't have the money to carry out this bogus recurrent expenditure, you are not going to do it anyway. You are going to say, look, I don't have the capacity anymore. And I think that's the smartest thing to do. In fairness, Jonathan was already talking about this on his own. And I think the Governors Forum, they set up a committee to look into this. And you know what? Whether it was Fashola or Amici was the chairman. And there was a proposal. But the extent to which the governors have followed up on that proposal, we don't have the information now. But that is the the approach that puts you in a position to deal with a problem from the root cause. Instead of talking about the symptoms and persuading Jonathan, the federal government is not going to listen to you. But when the revenue is small, then it will cut its coat according to its cloth. That is my own position.
Well, I was just going to ask you, I know you have been following it. Now, and a lot of people have been asking, how different is this probe going to be from the ones we've had before in terms of expectations of what the outcome will be, which punitive measures will be taken? I asked my guest this yesterday, and he didn't seem he did seem actually optimistic, saying that this time around it seems like it's different this time because many Nigerians than ever before are now more focused and more interested in this particular probe.
The truth of the matter is this. There's a lot of public interest in this probe already. So to that extent, maybe the people who are intent on, cutting corners and sweeping it under the carpet, it might be a little difficult for them at this time. But that is not to say that a major, outcome will come that will deal with a lot of the issues that we are talking about. There are two issues involved here. The probe in the first instance is to look at the problems and also to manage the anger of the general public, which was very high during the protestation period.
Indeed.
That is one. Two, in terms of finding solutions to the problem, let us not think that this probe will create a solution. It will only reduce the problems. That is the problem of diversion and probably the problem of... Significantly, yes, I agree with that. I don't have any issues about that. It's going to reduce it. But the truth of the matter is the fundamental problem of the sector is still going to remain. And those are the things, motivating these people to be fraudulent, motivating them to be talking about all sorts of extraneous things that are strange.
Well, that's the subsidy by the federal government, bringing it down 65 and giving them the opportunity to sell it elsewhere.
See, the truth of the matter is this. If products are sold elsewhere, out of Nigeria, by Nigerian businessmen, it is something that should be encouraged. What is making it bad is because those products are subsidized. So, government has reduced subsidy already, but government must continue to move in the direction of getting all those things that it should put in place that can put it in a position to remove subsidy. The permanent solution to this problem that we're having today is not this probe or the reduction in the price that the government has announced. It is going to be when we eventually make that sector a market-driven sector.
I think we're gradually moving towards that.
Yeah, we're gradually moving towards that, but it's not only to move towards that, it's to work towards that. And that was the problem with this regulation that was announced and became a problem. The truth of the matter is, even Labour and a lot of civil society organizations, they were not against subsidy, they were not against the regulation per se. Everybody seemed to agree that the regulation is a smart decision.
Of course, and the removal of subsidy was just one component
of the deregulation, but it's in terms of preparedness.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot deregulate within 6 months of taking power. It's not going to happen. It's something that you should plan and begin to put all those structures in place that will make the regulation seamless. Like I said, the Nigerian people were on the streets. They say, we don't want the regulation. But the truth of the matter, if they had gone on the 1st of January to the fuel stations, and fuel was selling at 60 naira, they're going to embrace the regulation. And they're going to say, don't bring this subsidy back if this one can, give us better price on a sustainable basis. That's the issue. So it's not really whether you are doing a subsidy regime or you are doing a deregulation regime. What the people are interested in is they want to get to their stations and buy fuel at a price that they consider reasonable. But that price, we should not fix it. We should move towards the regulation in a way that it will be seamless and will be as painless as possible to the common man when we are doing that transition. And it requires a lot of planning, it requires a lot of putting structures in place and all that. That is what we should focus on. If we continue to focus on this probe, I can tell you we are going to miss the issue.
Yeah, but I think you don't think it's important because, like you said, it will calm a lot of nerves, bring out, I think at this point Nigerians have come to a point where they need to know whether or not it's going to be a solution. They just need to know that, okay, because there have been speculations or rumors that this certain group of people have been benefiting from a particular situation. We need to know who they are. Let's just know who they are, even if nothing will be done to them. Let's just know who they are. Let's just let our suspicions be confirmed that, okay, yes, indeed, these people have been benefiting from a bad situation, Esther, and then let's move forward.
I am interested in what happens in the future.
Okay, let's move away from this probe. It's in its fourth day today. It comes to an end.
The probe is going to talk about what happens in the past with the intention of correcting it. What's going to come out of the probe? It's going to continue the subsidy that we are still doing. We're not going to have deregulation. The probe is not going to lead to deregulation. Yeah,
but there's a talk of the PIB being speeding up the passage of the petroleum industry bill.
That is being done by government, not by the probe. The probe is to look at the past. The government should be looking at the future. How do you go ahead to deregulate and put structures in place in a way that the people accept deregulation? There's nothing wrong with deregulation. It's a smart policy. But it's the way you manage that transition that will make people to understand whether it is in their interest or it is not in their interest. And the way we are going, the truth of the matter is we are seeing conflicting positions in the government's move towards this direction. And the conflict is such that I see the NNPC Group Managing Director and the Minister for Petroleum, Alice Madueke, still talking about doing turnaround maintenance for our refineries.
Yes, a lot of attention was put on that.
But the truth of the matter is, this House probe, if they have that power or they can recommend to the President, they should put a stop to it. There is no need for it, absolutely. You see, there's something they call a SACOS.
For the turnaround maintenance, if these refineries need to be met.
Look. There's something they call a SACOS. And you cannot expect to be doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah, but with
added attention this time around, one would think or hope that things will be different.
No, Esther,
if we're talking about the fact that, okay, now the Kaduna refinery or the Port Harcourt refinery hasn't had any turnaround maintenance since 1998, when each refinery is meant to have a turnaround maintenance every 2 years. They need, and I do have some of the figures for the capacity of each of these refineries and the percentage that's guaranteed in terms of their capacity, according to Mr. Austin Onimo, the GMD of NNPC, said for the Kaduna refinery 110,000 barrels of capacity and only 90%.
Let them not bother us about those figures. Those figures.
If we're talking about refining our own oil, getting our refineries to work, adding 3 new ones.
1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
1 second, Esther. There's something we must first correct. To buy petrol in Nigeria, for the public to buy petrol in Nigeria, is it the job of the government to import it? Is it the job of the government to refine it? My personal view, it's not their job. They are completely distracted. Their job is to regulate that sector and make sure all operators are operating within the rules. That's their job.
Before we get there, we need to get these 3 refineries.
We don't need to get these 3 refineries working.
Optimal.
No, we don't. And I'm very serious about this. I don't care what the minister says. I don't understand what the NNPC man is talking about. There is no need for government to go and do those turnaround, because we've been turning around.
Them line fallow, line below their capacity.
We've been turning around those refineries for the past 30 years, and they've been monumental failure. And not only those refineries, every business government has entered into has been monumental failure. Look, towards the tail end of the Obasanjo regime, Obasanjo ended around 2007. The truth of the matter is, by 2006 and early 2007, the Port Harcourt refinery was sold to the private sector. It was Yar'Adua that reversed it. So, why can't we sell them as is? Because people would buy them as they are. Why do you go and spend government money?
No, but with the present regime that we have, the NNPC chairman, GMD, did say that it won't be beneficial to a private investor won't come in this present
Let him not say that to us.
Because he will not make they won't make any gains according to what the NNPC GMD.
I am talking in the capacity of a staff of PSC.
He is talking in the capacity. He was talking in the capacity as a GMD of the NNPC. He is the one who is sitting there and should know the figures.
The truth of the matter is that Oniwa was not the GMD when this transaction was done. My company advised Dangote. in the purchase of Port Harcourt refineries. This is fact. I was involved in that transaction. The truth of the matter is, Dangote bought Port Harcourt refinery as it was then, without any turnaround. And he had his own plans. How to turn it around and run it in a proper way that business should be run. And the truth of the matter is, he paid to the federal government. We participated in facilitating that payment. When Yar'Adua came in, Yar'Adua reversed that privatization and then returned Dangote's money. So why would somebody now come to us and say, if I don't turn around, nobody will buy the refinery? That's not correct. That is absolutely incorrect. But the question is it the government job to be owning refineries and refining products when in 30, 40 years they have failed completely to achieve that?
The Minister of Finance has actually said that she does agree that it's not. Government is not a good manager of that, managing the refineries. She has actually said that.
And this is for the public too. Let government save the money that is ours and go and use it to do all those things they have put in that document of sure.
The subsidy reinvestment.
Let's not waste government money on these things, because there are people who already have money who wants to buy them as they are.
With the present regime that we have, you are saying they will make profits in this environment?
That is for them to determine. Look, if a private sector buy things, why should I bother whether we make money or not? That's not government job.
Of course, he would sit down, look at the environment, look at the indices, look at everything. If he's not going to make profit, I mean, come on, why would I put my money down?
Whose job is it, whether he will make profit or not? Let the man determine that in his own business model. The government job is to say, I'm selling my asset and I want to get fair value for this asset I'm selling. Anybody that buys it, it's their money, it's their business, it's their worry. Why do you take Panadol for somebody's headache? You say because the man will not make money, then let me now go and use all the money I should use to send my children to school, and then begin to use it to refurbish my Danfo, because I want the man that buy the Danfo to make money when he starts operating it. Is it my business? When the man has come to me and say, sell it to me as it is, even I can even refurbish it better than you, and at a more efficient cost and at a faster speed. That is the issue. So let's not talk about the refineries. I think government should stop this turnaround maintenance. There is absolutely no need for it. People will buy them as they are and they will operate them. Because they had bought them before, it was Yar'Adua that reversed them.